Hey guys, my name is Damon Haynes, and I say we get straight to it. So, how many of you guys want to move to California? I doubt this very much, if any at all, because let's be honest with ourselves. High crime, high housing prices, lack of economic opportunity, high taxes, just to name of the few things going on inside California. And that's not even going into the specifics of, say, policies on transgenderism with children, or any of the other cultural issues. The big thing, though, is the taxes and the crime. So you look at places like Illinois or New York or any of these other Democrat states, primarily, they have these high taxes and a high crime, and because of that, they're not seeing the population increases that you saw previously. But for instance, California, they're having a population decline, where the population is leaving, going to places like going to places like Texas or Florida. And for to highlight this, based off a new study that came out, based off population increases from 2021, 2022, I do believe, maybe 2022, 2023. I'll look at it when we get to the article. Florida has been ranked for the first time since 1957 the fastest growing state in the U.S. And this is a percentage of population. So they're saying if you have a 2% increase of population, your population increased by 2%. So this isn't based off of just massive amounts of people going on, but based off of population. And that's important because Florida has the third largest population inside the U.S. behind California and Texas. So in order for Florida to be the fastest growing state, they have a larger amount of people coming in than typically all the other states, just because that needs to happen for that percentage to make sense. So it's incredible. Now, if you want to look at to why, or just on a surface level, let's look. Republican governor versus, say, a Democrat governor in California. Republican policies. Don't say gay bill, as the media calls it in Florida. Sticking it to Disney. Standing up to the media with DeSantis. They stayed open during COVID. You had freedom still, unlike you had in other states, where even in Republican states, they took back some of that individual freedom that you are given to by God, not the government, but given to you by God. Some of those Republican states even took away those rights, but Florida stayed open. They allowed you to make that personal choice. You never had to wear a mask. The businesses stayed open. They didn't close anything. So their economy during COVID, it didn't shrink. It increased. Unlike other states, like California, where it decreased. And so it's not a remarkable or a unforeseen event for Florida to be the fastest growing state currently. And anyone who's paying attention knows why. So getting into the article. Yeah, so 21 to 2022. There we go. But they had a 1.9% increase over that year frame. So they're increasing drastically higher than everyone else, passing Idaho, which again, Idaho is another Republican state. So the year's previous top state when it comes to population growth was another Republican state. Again, not surprising. But what I really want to show in this article, because it just talks down about some of the percentage increases, is the trend overall for these states. So down here. So while topping states in percentage increases, Florida has also had the second largest increase in raw numbers of residents. Its 416,754 increase trailed only Texas, 470,708 increase. Florida continued to have the third largest population in the country behind California and Texas. Texas' population grew by 1.6%, while California's population declined by 0.3%. Other states with the largest percentage increase during the year were Idaho at 1.8%, South Carolina at 1.7%, South Dakota and Montana at 1.5%. In state with largest population decreases were New York at 0.9%, Illinois and Louisiana at 0.8%, West Virginia at 0.6%, and Hawaii at 0.5%. So, Out of the states that are growing at the highest rate, you had Idaho, South Carolina, South Dakota, Montana, Texas, Florida. All Republican. Every single one of those states is Republican. They have low taxes. They have more freedoms. They respect the individual. And their populations were increasing drastically. Now you compare that to the states that were decreasing, who at large are Democrat. New York, Illinois, Hawaii. As for Louisiana and West Virginia, I know West Virginia is Republican. As Louisiana, I'm not really sure. They're kind of finicky, if I remember right. And he also had California, also another Democrat state. So what do these states at the bottom have in common with each other? For the most part, excluding, I believe, West Virginia, they have high taxes, high crime, terrible policies. When it comes, say, schools. At your kid at school now is going to be taught at 2 years old, well, not in the second grade, sorry, about all the different genders, about all the different sexualities, about have drag queens come to school in their demonic outfits, spread their legs open while they're reading books to these children so they can show themselves off. For instance, you get abortion policies, which honestly, that probably doesn't play a big role into population decrease or decline. But I imagine a lot of the other cultural issues, such as schools and children, play a big part of it, with the biggest part of it being taxes. Because if you track taxes, because if it's cheaper for you to live there, you're more inclined to go there. If it's cheaper for you to go there, it's typically going to be cheaper there for the businesses to go there because they're going to pay less taxes. So if the businesses want to save money, they're going to go to places like Texas. And you can see that with Austin being a new big tech capital because, hey, it's significantly cheaper than California. So these tech businesses are moving to Austin, which Austin itself has become like this little California. But that's a whole nother issue. But the point being, lower taxes, more economic growth, people move there. Lower crime, well, safer. No one wants to live someplace that's not safe. I mean, look at places like Chicago and New York City. How many people are being murdered there every day? I mean, for instance, like New York, you're getting pushed straight onto the train tracks. Repetitively, people are being pushed onto the train tracks and murdered. It's not a safe place to live. And people notice that, so they move out and they go to the other states. They go to places like Florida, where you're the most free during COVID. It was the best state when it came to COVID policies. And to back up my point for taxes, for instance, I pulled up from the Wallet Hub a just kind of like basic tax breakdown on your tax burden based off of states. So if we do your number one states for tax burden, New York, Hawaii, right? So those are two states that were decreasing in population, right? So we had California, Illinois, right? So there we go. Just right off the bat, some of our top states when it came to taxes, our top 10 states, were also some of our top declining states. So 10 and 9 are California and Illinois. 1 and 2 are Hawaii and New York. So then if we go all the way down to the bottom and see who has the least amount of tax burden, you see some of these other states that we saw on the list. South Dakota, Montana, South Carolina, Idaho, Texas. And Florida's higher up on the list, but they don't have an income tax. And that's important to note too. But my point is, if you tax your citizens less, your citizens have more money. If they can spend more money, it's more incentive for businesses to move there and base themselves there because the citizens have more money. If the businesses are being taxed less, they're going to want to move their headquarters to these states. Everyone's happier when they get taxed less. And it's not like the government can't function with less taxes. You know who had a surplus in taxes this year? Texas did. Indiana did. You know who didn't have a tax surplus? California. California was getting bailed out by the government during COVID to help pay for their state budget because they can't afford it. Yet, you're going to argue, these Democrats are going to argue that you need to increase taxes constantly to pay for these public welfare programs that help out everyone who's struggling, who's poor, who who is having misfortune. While if you lower taxes, there's less misfortune because then you have more economic growth. People in Texas, you don't see this massive homelessness issue that you have in California. In Texas, the only place you ever get remotely close to a Californian level homelessness issue in Texas is in Austin. And Austin has similar policies to the California. So it's not really surprising when you look at that when it comes to homeless people. But that being said, if you're looking, say, at the results of this, so you're looking at Florida's population increase and how they've taken over Idaho, they're almost at the same population level, increasing every year, just in numbers, with Texas. And you look at who's running it, and it's DeSantis, and he just blew his election out of the water, won that by a landslide. It wasn't even a challenge from the Democrats there. They couldn't compete with him because the people in Florida love him. And then you look at this upcoming presidential campaign, primary within the Republican Party. The only strong contender you have against DeSantis is Trump. And Trump has been wishy-washy. Some really strong statements, some non-strong statements. I mean, he had the NFT cards. That absolutely hilarious to watch. Not exactly a strong outing from President Trump. But going up to New Palestine and giving water to those who are struggling, who can't drink the local water because of the ecological disaster that happened there. That's a strong showing from Trump. So he has these back and forth things. But his competition right now are people like Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley's not a good competition for him. The only competition he has is DeSantis. And the more Florida continues to excel, like with this population increase that you're seeing from Forbes, #1 growing state right now in the union, it's looking better and better for DeSantis because he has that in his bag. But really, the point of this video was to say, hey, look, Democrat policies suck. They don't work. Everyone can see it. The more they continue, the worse those things get, the bigger that gap gets between these states. California is bankrupt. Texas had a tax surplus, and they're trying to figure out how to give it back to the citizens. Florida had the largest population increase in the union, and they're looking at moving taxes off of essential goods, primarily with child care items, so like diapers, child food, baby formula, etc. And they may already have done that. I know that was mentioned months ago by DeSantis, but they're doing all these strong things in these Republican states, and it's growing the state significantly, and it become more enticing for everyone to live in, while Democrat states just keep doubling down on what's been proven not to work, and they're not changing it. And it's self-evident for anyone who can see. I'm certainly not going to move to someplace like California. Is it beautiful? Absolutely. They have the prettiest state in the union, but they are running it to the ground, and ain't no one going to move there just because it's pretty. You're going to move there, get taxed, and then mugged, and you're going to have nothing left. So, anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for next time.